Welcome back to the Social Selling Podcast, and I am so pumped for this episode. I mean, we get some good guests on the show. We get some great guests on the show, but today is one of the greatest guests that we've had on the show, a true legend in the sales space, someone who has been in this game for such a long time, sales, social selling, genuine sales navigator expert, B2B sales influencer, Morgan J. Ingram. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
I'm happy to be here, man. You got us hyped up. I love it. We're here. We're here.
Well, I think you and I have shared a very similar journey. We were quite early adopters to creating sales content and kind of rode the wave in a very similar fashion. And I've admired your journey massively. I'd love to just kick it off really and talk about the SDR journey that you started off with. What was that like? What was the motivation to start sharing it online?
Yeah, so it's two things. So before I started the role, I read an article on Sales Hackers, so shout out to them. And Ralph Barcy had written the article on what you need to do to be a top SDR. I didn't know because I was just getting into the role. And so at the end of it, he said something interesting. He was like, if you're a rep right now, you should be sharing content on what you're doing in your role, and you should create a YouTube channel. So that was interesting because before I read that, I was already creating content on Facebook and I was doing live Periscope. So I was already doing videos. So I was already getting used to like delivering it. And so I was like, that's interesting. But I didn't do it for like 5-6 months because I didn't feel confident to share anything because I had just started a brand new job. I didn't know what sales was. I didn't know what a CRM was. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know what a PLG, MLG, XLR, you know, all these acronyms we throw out there. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing it yet. But then, as fate would have it, in most scenarios, I met Ralph at a conference called Rainmaker. And he remembered because I tweeted at him and said, I'm going to start this thing. And he's like, hey, where's that series at? And I'm like, yeah, like I'll get to it, right? And so the next talk was Gary Vaynerchuk. And so I was like, all right, like what's he got to say? And I was already a huge fan of him at that point. And he talked about how sales reps should start creating content and that no one was doing it. And it's a huge advantage point. So in life, I just look at things as I look at trends of things that are happening in front of you and capitalizing on those things. So once I had heard Ralph, I ran into Ralph. I don't think that was by accident and said, hey, you should do this. I had read the article from him. And then Gary Vee was like, hey, you should create this content. He's like, only 1 or 2 of you are going to be successful doing it. I felt like he was talking directly to me. And so after talking to Gary Vee he was like, yeah, you should start the YouTube channel. So I went home that night and I don't even know. I think I drew it myself or something like that, and then created the YouTube channel and just got started the next morning. So that's how it all started.
I love that. And I think people are surrounded by opportunities, but a lot of people miss them. They're not looking, but they're there. And you were very much there, aware and looking for the signs, and you found them. I think one thing I find interesting, and I've spoken to a few LinkedIn sales creators that publish videos, and a lot of them do either feel comfortable on camera or have done videos in the past. Now you've helped train hundreds, thousands of salespeople all over the world. From my experience, the majority aren't comfortable getting in front of a camera and recording videos. What's some of your advice to people that where it might not be natural for them to do video content to help them sort of get over that bridge?
Yeah, video content or video in the sales cycle? These are like 2 different things.
Very 2 different things. I think video in the sales cycle, people can probably bridge across because, it's no different to going on a call. But I think recording a video of yourself to like publish on LinkedIn.
That's different. Yeah. That's different. Yeah. The reason I say that because I understand where that comes from because it really is fear. Now, my answer is going to be based on what I actually saw a post from Kevin Dorsey. We probably both follow him. We've seen his content, Katie. He actually talked about this morning, which is very interesting. He talked about how when we have fear, we need to figure out what the core issue or root of that actual fear is. So if you're afraid of video, you're not afraid of the actual video itself. That means you're probably afraid of creating video content and people seeing your content and not engaging with it and making fun of you. Okay, that's real. Or maybe you feel like you're going to create video content and you're just going to look silly. Like you don't even put yourself out there. Okay. Or you create video content, you really don't know what you're gonna say, so you're just like, I think I'm just gonna like make a bad video. Okay, so I think it's first you got to figure out what the issue is,
Yeah,
and then addressing what that means, and then figuring out how do I solve that. So from my perspective, like the thing that I was afraid of before I made videos was the first one. If I make a video, it's out there so anybody could see it and people could make fun of me and I don't even know who those people are like behind the scenes because they're not going to comment and say like
yeah.
I don't like this video, right? I mean most people, I mean, there's some people who will do that, but most people aren't going to go out their way to do that. So you could create a video, get no engagement, but everyone could be making fun of you behind your back. That's the thought that people go through people's head. But the way I saw it was the way I changed that and reframed it was, what if I create this video and I impact one person? Then it changes the way that you show up with your videos. Because then if you're only looking to impact one person, you won't care about the people that are
Yeah,
making
yeah.
fun of it or whatever it may be. You're just going to move on. So that's just something that I instilled in my own self to really focus on what matters moving forward.
Well, salespeople generally have, or definitely grow thick skin to deal with objections and rejection. But I think sometimes video is almost a separate thing to that sales process. So actually connecting the dots and just realizing that ultimately it doesn't matter. And you're right, if you can impact one person or more, it's worth it. What I think is interesting is the sort of fear that you had early on before you started was that I've only just started this role, and actually
Yep.
there are lots of salespeople that are new in their career, and what you found, which was just such a great opportunity, was you didn't go out there to tell people what to do. You documented your journey. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
what stage of your career you're at. Was that also scary at the start, sort of being relatively fresh in the role and putting stuff out there?
I think at the start, for the first 3 months, I wasn't doing well, so I didn't feel comfortable to even create the videos. You know what I'm saying? So like, I just didn't really feel good about it at all. By the time I went to Rainmaker, I'd started doing better, so
Okay.
I felt more confident in doing it. And I think I was a unique case in a regard because I was already creating videos on Facebook,
Hmm.
and people didn't understand what I was doing back then. So for me, I was like, all right, like this is just it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm just gonna I just see what's happening there, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna move over here to LinkedIn. When I started creating the videos on LinkedIn, I didn't really care at that point because I had already gone through the process of that when I was doing Facebook and Periscope. So I was just like, I just needed a vehicle to talk about that I felt confident in. So once I felt confident in my role and I felt like I could document it and really share, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. This makes sense.
I love that. I love that. And times have changed. It's now becoming very common and normal
I
for
know.
companies and
I
sales
know.
teams to create content. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think companies should be providing resources and space for their salespeople to start creating content?
Yes, but I don't think every rep should be creating content. I see a lot of people saying that every rep should be creating content. I think that's wrong because most reps that I've interacted with, they just aren't they actually it doesn't make sense for them to create the content because they're just better at other things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're better at the selling portion or the cold calling. So, I actually don't want them to do those things. What I do want them to do is curate, which is different than creating content. And this is an important distinction. So, the way I look at it is if I can get a rep to put out one piece of content a week, that's great. But the way we do that is we don't give them here's the company update and post it on that's no. Here's a product update and let's post it on out here. Like, no, those are things I'm not looking to do. What I'm looking to do is say, okay, what if I took a step back and I give a rep, here are like an article, here's a podcast, here are like a couple things that you can go read. And then go tell the rep, take 3 highlights from that conversation and then share and curate what that means to that person and then
Mhm.
create that weekly cadence. So if you did that every week, that leads into 52 weeks of posting. And you're also learning about your industry. So there's no real loss there. Now, what I've identified and realized is that like a lot of people say that's a lot of work. And I don't think it is if you're doing the research about your industry anyways, you might as well
Yeah.
write about it. I think that all comes together. But a lot of people are like, that's a lot of work, that's crazy. That's fine. I just tell people like if you want your team to be creating, treat them as curators and then find people who raise their hand that truly do want to create, like myself. The thing is, I just had a different perspective. I wanted to get into marketing. I wanted to learn content. So like I knew I wasn't going to be sales for the rest of my life. I told the team that when I joined, I'm not going to be here forever in sales. It just so happened that I got into sales coaching and sales training, and I ended up training all these top teams. But that was not the goal. I'm just letting people know right now. The goal was to create content. The goal was to impact people that way. And a byproduct, all these other things happen.
Love that. And I don't know about you, but I found pretty much every company I've worked with, there is always at least one person that is
There's always
either
one.
interested in social or already active on social. There's always one, sometimes a few.
Yeah.
And I agree, those have more potential and more interest, which means
Exactly.
you're going to get more out of it than the other. So I love that approach.
Yep.
What do you think sales leaders can do to support those creators more? So the 1, 2, 3, however many there are, what can sales leaders do to nurture their growth with social?
Yeah, and I want to call this out because when we talk about this, a lot of people only think it works within the marketing and sales persona. I've seen it work with other personas as well, and IT
Yeah.
security, et cetera. So I want to call that out because a lot of people think that it's only for those people, and there are other examples. So if you're a sales leader, this is where you need to look at, and there's a lot of posts around this right now, and I'm writing a post on it too because I want to be thoughtful with it. But when we think about sales, we think about, okay, net new opportunities to close, right? In the most simple framework. But now there's these other functions where you have to get marketing involved, you have to get sales ops, customer success. So the way the sales leader can enable that creator is you need to have like and I was just talking to Singer about this, it's like a go-to-market alignment meeting is what he was talking about. So if we have a go-to-market alignment meeting, okay, rep is going to do X, but how can marketing or the content team support this person that wants to create content? How can we weave them in to our content strategy, right?
Yeah.
And you got to figure out what that looks like for everyone. That's going to be different, but that's the strategic way of going about this. The sales leader might not be able to have the content strategy to give the rep. That actually might not be the best move. But the sales leader can be like, hey, look, I know my rep needs to do X, but the marketing team can help us do X. How do we come together and do it the same way? So that's the way I think about it.
And I'm with you on that one. How much time? Because I guess for the sales leader, the challenge is how much
Yeah.
time am I going to take away from their traditional prospecting activities to give them into content creation? I guess that's the hard part up front, isn't it? How much time do you commit to it?
I did all my content creation outside of my job.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I wasn't creating. I mean, it was a different realm. LinkedIn just looked different. But the thing is, like, what I committed to, because my manager and I talked about it, and like he did a great job of doing this because I think I was the only rep creating content. So there was no blueprint on how to handle someone who creates content and has a brand that's building. And they also have a job. Like I still had a quota. It's not like I escaped the quota. Like I still had to hit it, right? So the interesting thing about it was our whole agreement, right? The way we looked at it was create your content outside of work, which is what I did. And then I would have like during lunch or before lunch, like 30 minutes, I would go on, answer DMs, see what's going on. But like I wouldn't spend a lot of time creating content within work. I did all of it outside of work. And so that might not be the best advice because I know hustle culture is getting like completely attacked right now. And like people are like, well, you're working out of hours. I'm just telling you what I did during that time and still was able to hit my number. And the first 3 months I struggled, but after the third month, I hit my number every single month as an SDR, and I never missed my number as a manager. And I was a manager an entire year and had 13 reps. I never missed it. So I do believe it is possible to create the content and be successful. It's just going to be another job that you have to have. And it's just something you have to understand you're getting yourself into. But I think if you commit to 30, I tell people, if you commit to 30 to 45 minutes a week, like you'll have content for the week. If you just do 1 to 2 posts, we're not asking you to post every single day unless you want to take it to that level. That's a different conversation. But if you do 30 to 40 minutes a week at the end of the week, beginning of the week, create like 1 or 2 posts there and just kind of think it through, you'll be able to just do it that way. That's my thought process on this.
No, I'm with you entirely on that. Are you finding sales and marketing working better together now because of like LinkedIn and social selling and content creation? Or do you still find some companies where there's still a bit of a disconnect?
So companies, there will always be a disconnect. I think at the end of the day, they're like inevitably, like you almost have to at this point. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna be successful, the marketing, the sales, the customer success, the sales operations, rev ops, they have to be speaking to together on a continuous basis because there's so many lever points you have to move now, right? The awareness that you're looking to get is just a lot harder. So
Yeah.
you have to do things a lot differently because of that. So I find that more teams are starting to truly work together, and it's not just like something that they say.
Yeah, I kind of see LinkedIn as almost the joining force because everyone kind of has, a horse in the race as such, and it kind of is forcing that
Exactly.
collaboration, which is good. Okay, loving this conversation because I think we're sort of emerging into this sort of realm now of salespeople becoming active on LinkedIn in different capacities, whether it's content,
Mm.
messaging, etc. Now, what the outcome is, and what we're starting to see a huge rise in, and when you and I were talking about this the other day,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is this B2B influencer space where we now have individuals that are growing audiences 5,000, 10,000,
Yeah.
20,000 followers. And these audiences now have value to other companies. And there's this whole sort of monetizing play where companies are now investing in influencer
Mm.
marketing on LinkedIn. You are at the heart of this. I think you and I have been a part of this from the very early days, but
Yeah.
you are building a tremendous business around helping companies do this the right way, because I'm sure, like myself, we've seen what works and what doesn't work. And so what are some of your thoughts on this sort of, I guess, essentially booming
Yeah.
B2B influencer marketplace, and what are some of the flags that you think people should look out for?
Yeah. So it's like a lot of things here. So this is something that we've been talking to so many orgs. I've talked to so many CMOs about this, and a lot of them are very nervous in investing. They want to invest and they're excited, but they're
Yeah,
nervous because they don't know who to trust or where to go to be like what's real and what's not, which
yeah.
I think is completely fair. So if I look at all the clients that we've worked with and the deals that we've done, I would say to you that I'm starting to see influencer marketing from the B2B perspective. Now, this is important, not B2C, because it's I think they're different in a lot of regards.
Yeah, yeah.
The B2B influencer marketing is more of a production than it is a tactic. And so let me explain what that means. So when I say a tactic, that's hey, let's go get influencers and do a post.
Mhm.
If you think about that, that doesn't correlate to what you're trying to get accomplished.
Yeah, yeah.
B2C influencer marketing can be a tactic or a campaign stretch because you're influencing a lollipop. Hey, I have a lollipop and I want you to buy it. That's a pretty easy decision. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool. Or like, hey, I have this hat that you should go buy. I have
Mhm.
this chocolate you can go buy. That's not hard. Yeah, it's not a hard decision to make. Like, you either want the candy or the hat or you
Yeah,
don't, right? It's like, great. Like, that was a good video. I'm going to go buy the candy. With these products, though, you're not going to make one decision off of
yeah, yeah.
a post. Now, you could raise your hand and have interest to go check it out, but you're going to have to see it more times to truly want to invest. And so when I say it's more of a production, we're finding that things that are like we've done a I mean, you know this, right? The production we've done with Calendly and the masterclass, the things that we're doing with clients and creating more long form shows and webinars. I know these things people like they're outdated, but I'm actually just starting to see that there has to be continuous education
Yeah,
top
yeah.
level from the organization with credible voices that are influencers and subject matter experts to do that. And I believe that's where we're going. And I'm only saying that because I'm in the deals. I'm working with these organizations and we're seeing the results. Like, and those will come out in the next couple of weeks of what we're seeing. So that's what I see there. So I think ultimately the benefits of this is you need to partner with someone who has trust in the market, and this is important, beyond the platform. Someone could have trust in the platform, but beyond the platform, there's trust. At this point, Daniel, both and I have built this. If we decided not to post for 3 years, people would still probably know who we are in the space.
Yeah.
You could probably still reach out to anyone. You could probably send an email and someone's like, I've seen that person before. Because
Mhm.
we've been doing it for a good amount of time and we have credibility and trust in the market. So we have it beyond the platform, which is great. Also, we have subject matter expertise. You understand social selling. I understand cold outbound. I know how to do prospecting. So even if I didn't post the content, I could still speak to it in this
Yeah.
regard, which I'm a subject matter expert with influence, right? That's key. I think the risk here is starting to get too many influencers, not knowing how to communicate with the influencers. There are people that I speak to and they just don't know how to like communicate what they want. So if you come to an influencer and say, "Hey, can you come on my webinar?" and like, "Okay, great, you know, what do I get in return?" Something. I'm not,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be money all the time, but something. And like, "Oh no, you're just gonna get exposure." That doesn't, if you think about it, that doesn't make sense. You're reaching out to me to come on something, which means you need me for the exposure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like, so like, unless it's like, a massive show or something, most of the time that doesn't make sense. Also, as well, it's like people will come in and say, "Hey, we're launching this product and we want you to talk about it." And then they're like, I'm like, "Great, can I see the product?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, that doesn't really make sense. Like, how am I going to talk about this if I can't see it and I can't feel it?" So it's just for everyone out there. And also, I've made a post about this too, is language, right? When you ask an influencer to post, are you just giving them the script and say, "Hey, just do this thing"? That's not real. That's not authentic. That's not going to work. So all these things across the board, they're not going to work in the long term. And so that's what I tell people, is you have to be careful of it. And I know we're going to dive into marketplaces, but I know I went into a whole spill. Obviously, you can tell I'm very passionate about this right now, but I truly do believe it's more production. It's a long-term thing. I think campaigns work in a spurt if you're trying to do a product update. But if you're truly trying to work with influencers, subject matter experts, you got to think about this on a long-term perspective.
It's an experience thing, and I think companies that have been doing this over the last few years will have learned that it's okay. You can pay an influencer one post, this amount of money,
Sure.
but usually the ROI is pretty low. But when you do look at that long play, you find the right people with the right audiences. You collaborate on content creation. That's where the value comes into it. I'm curious, what do you qualify as an influencer? So if you were looking for influencers to work at, is it based purely on followers, or are there other metrics you're looking for?
I look at it very differently. So there's 3 levels of the influencer. So and to take a step back, I look at everyone now as a B2B creator.
Mhm.
I think if we say someone's an influencer, and this might rub people the wrong way, but just because you started creating content does not correlate that you're an influencer yet.
Yeah.
Influencer drives action. If you say something, people will stand by it and they will go do it. If you're just starting to create content, well, they may not know your voice yet. You don't have the authority yet, and it takes time. Like, we've all been there. So the first level of that is the affiliate. So for companies that are just starting out, startups, they're like, "Well, I don't have the money to give an influencer."
Mhm.
All right, or a creator. Okay. Well, how are you gonna compensate them then? Right? No one's just gonna post the post. So I say there's affiliate deals. So that's like at the lowest threshold. So that's basically, hey, we're gonna give you an affiliate link. If you drive signups, we'll give you X amount. If this closes the deal, we'll give you 20%. That's like an affiliate link. So it's someone like they have a niche audience. You're just trying to drive signups. You're trying to see, does their audience even correlate to what they're saying at all? And if they do, that can move up to the next layer I'm about to talk about. But that's the affiliates. So the thing is, you could have a ton of affiliates. You could have 10 to 20, 100 affiliates. It doesn't really matter, because you're just giving them a link and you're going on top of that. If they end up getting more and more traction, you might give them more money, but that you could start as affiliates. So these are people who are niche creators and you just want to test them out, right? So that's the affiliate. Now, for the creator side, most people don't like taking those deals because then it's all based on their performance of that post, right? So that might not be beneficial, and so you might have to get a little bit of money, but that's just where you start. So affiliates. The second one is the influencer. So this is someone who has now started got traction. People do hear them out a little bit, and they're willing to invest. So this is where you're going to have people integrate into content campaigns where they are doing maybe more posts for you, a couple things along the way. Maybe they hop on a couple stuff with you, a podcast, etc. Right? Those are a couple things that they do. Right? The influencer might have a longer term deal, obviously, than the affiliate, and they're actually getting real money up front. Now, the next layer to that is where we play and where I'm hyper focused on, and I believe is like the true nature of how you're going to drive revenue in a go-to-market motion with influencer marketing, is the subject matter expert. Now, the subject matter expert is someone who knows the subject matter expertise very well of the industry that they're being brought into. So for us, most of the brands we work with are sales technology companies because of my background in sales, prospecting, etc. So this is where you just get a lot deeper. It's content plus also a little bit of consulting is what we've seen. So I am doing content, but the content that we post drives to the North Star of what we're trying to accomplish. What does that mean? So the North Star of what we're trying to accomplish typically is a larger production, is what we've identified. So we point to a masterclass. Like I just told you, the Calendly masterclass. We have it right now. We're wrapping up the registrants, but it's going to turn out to be probably one of the highest registered events they've ever had, right?
Wow.
Because we merged with subject matter expert plus credible brand plus relevant topic equals a highly intended thing. But all of our things pointed towards that, right? So now we could point to that as the piece. So that's an example. Even with Cognism, same thing. We have cold calling lives, highly registered. Our attendance rate is around 50% almost every single time, right? So and we're correlating subject matter experts plus the topic plus the event equals success. And every single client we work with, this is what we're seeing. So I'm like, okay, this is clearly a repeatable system here. So when I look at subject matter experts, you can get in more depth with the content to an audience. And the difference here is the influencer, the company pays the influencer to get to their audience. The company trusts the subject matter expert to talk to their audience. That's a huge difference. Yeah. Most companies will pay an influencer to talk to their audience, but most companies will not say, hey, we're going to put you in front of our people and put our stamp on it. It takes a lot, and only certain SMEs can get there, and that's what we see. Yeah. So the SMEs can do those things. It's just a lot more depth engagement. We're actually speaking to the company. I'm doing things with them in tandem, rather the influencer's just like, hey, we're paying you to post that stuff, but like, we're not going to tell you to come speak to our people. There's a difference there as well.
I think you've highlighted it well, though, with your 3 stages. And I think you are right, from affiliates to early stage creators to then influencers, and then obviously the subject matter experts, which is absolutely what the bigger companies are going to want, the longer projects. Now, I guess this probably then goes to the final question for our episode today, which is around influencer marketplaces. I'm seeing quite a lot of them being built at the moment.
There's a lot.
And curious to know what your thoughts are. I see them sitting in your middle arch of, and then probably in between sort of entry and middle of, affiliate and influencer. Yeah. Obviously, I think probably the subject matter expert is way above that. But what are your thoughts on these marketplaces coming into play?
Yeah, so when you to add context to this, so when you think of the subject matter expert, those are people who can garner the partnerships and long term. And I think Stephen Bartlett has had a deal like this. You're going to see a lot of B2B creators that have this, where and also the guy who reviews the tech, Marshawn, I think his name is. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? Marcus? I think his name is Marcus.
I think it's Marcus.
So if you actually look, and this will lead to the marketplace. If you look at their deals, they're getting $250,000 a year to work with the brand. They're also getting 5% equity stake. They're getting stock options. Long term, I believe every B2B creator should be aiming towards that. That is my focus right now. How do I work with these mid-market enterprise companies where we do get 6-figure deals, which we're getting? Then also as well, we're getting equity, like me personally, getting equity within those companies, and it's a true partnership. I believe every single person should be aiming towards that, because you're going to be more committed to the content and there's going to be a real partnership. Now, obviously, there's levels and you got to get there. So when I think of the marketplace, I think the marketplaces are great for people that are starting out, and it gives them an avenue to see, even if they like influencer marketing. Because most of the people that are in those marketplaces, it's not what they do full time.
Yeah.
They know this is what I do. All I think about is influencer marketing and sales and how it works with go-to-market. Like, this is all I think about. This is our business, right? It's producing, talking to influencers, talking to subject matter experts. This is what we do. So obviously full time, I'm going to be more serious about it. But the marketplace is good if you're like, I got a full-time job doing this, and like I kind of want to do a couple stuff, and like I'll take $1,000 for a post or $500 to do a thing. So I think it's really good for that. The obstacle with the marketplaces, though, and I know a lot of people are building them, and respect for what they're doing, because it's only elevating the B2B creators, is there needs to be more education.
Absolutely.
That's just the missing point right now. Okay, cool. I get an influencer deal, but do you understand the intricacies of reading the contract? Do you know how to work with the people? Do you understand the timelines to execute the content? Do you know how to speak the brand's voice while still being authentic? Do you know how to like communicate? Okay, what is success at the end of the day? No knock on anyone. I just feel like most people probably don't have those conversations. I've been fortunate where I've worked with a lot of people already, at the enterprise level where I know what to look for. I know how to read the contracts and things of that nature. No legal advice, but I know how to read it, right? And so that's probably where I'm seeing the gap in the marketplaces is we need to have education before we let it just go crazy. Because I think a lot of brands and creators may have a bad taste in their mouth if we're not educated on how to do this appropriately. And the market might have a bad taste in their mouth on how people are going to go about this because they're not educated as well. And so my focus is like the education of this right now more than anything.
I was exactly going to point to that bit. The risk that is going to come from this is that you're going to get companies going onto these marketplaces, choosing these influencers, paying, and not getting an ROI. And suddenly then it's going to be influencer marketing doesn't work because I've tried. And I don't think these marketplaces are going to be a fair representation of effective, successful influencer marketing. I think for some it will work, but I think you're right. There needs to be education and there needs to be transparency of results and metrics and traffic so you can really see. But collaboration is going to be key. But I'm with you. Education is what's going to help.
Unless, and there are brands that are in there that there are B2B influencers that take on B2C brands. So Darren McKee has done a good job of this. He has taken on some brands that are more B2C or D2C direct to consumer. And even though he talks about things in B2B, he's appealing to that lifestyle piece.
Yep.
And so I can see that being applicable. I don't know how many companies are involved in these marketplaces, but I would assume 90% of them are probably B2B. And to your point, that's where I'm like, that's a gap. Like if you're not educating people on what this looks like and you yourself have not done these deals, it is hard to talk to them straight up.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's such an exciting time, but a very cautious time. It's really nice to see influencer marketing booming, but we're gonna see good and bad things come from it. But I align with you 100% in that the ultimate goal for sustainable influencer marketing is definitely going to be around subject matter experts, long-term partnerships, true collaborations, not just this pay and play model, because that's no difference to an internal marketing team saying to their employees, here's today's article, go and post it.
It's the same. Yeah, it's just marketing spam, right? Is what it is at the end of the day. We don't want to see that. That's why there's nothing I can do. I can't say, hey, shut everything down. I'm talking to certain marketplaces, right, to help them along the way. I just know my main focus now is how do we educate the market? Like we have really good use cases. We've done some good stuff. And now I'm like, let's educate. But I actually want to, so this is interesting to me because everything's a wave, right?
Yeah.
Influencer marketing, even though people are like, oh, it's super hot, I don't think the wave has really even happened yet, to be fair. I think it's like just starting. I feel like it's just like, have you ever been to like a water park and they have the manufactured waves? It's like low tide. It isn't haven't got to like 6 yet where people are like wiping out. Like it's kind of like you feel it, but it's not like I'm dying. So I want to ask you a question because if you started creating when did you start creating content actually?
8 years ago.
Okay, so same time as me, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's considered OG in LinkedIn land. Like basically, like you're basically in the old retired people's home at 8 years. You're like, you've been doing it for 8 years? Like, yeah, I've been doing it for years. But I want to ask you a question is you obviously went all in on social selling. You built a brand around that. You built multiple, actually not facing brands, which you've done. But in 2017, 2018, everyone was talking about social selling. How do you go about it? Here's the templates. And you obviously took a different route and said, here's how you do it the right way. So like, I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit and like why you decided to go all in on social selling. And then how much work did you put in to make sure like to do this the right way? When a lot of people just rode that wave and just said, oh, we're social selling course. And like, it was spammy or like a lot of pitch slapping.
Do you know what? So going into the whole social selling thing was all about niching. And that was, for me, the evolution of my personal brand. Very similar to you, came into the sales world, was posting sales content. I was on my sales journey in my sales career. And what I found was that I could be a sort of a jack of all trades and talk about all things sales, but actually LinkedIn and social selling was something that I really mastered. So for me, it was niching down and being able to really focus my audience and content on a specific subject. What's interesting is, and I think what you're talking about as well is you and we see people come and go on LinkedIn, and
Yep.
I've always been the long-term play type of person. I'm not here to make big bold statements, make things up, or I'm all for the like, I'm as realistic as they come. For me, it's look, this is what works. Here's the numbers. Here's the here are the strategies. Here are the tactics. And yes, okay, it was a bit exciting at the start when social selling was trendy, but the people that come in and are a bit maybe a bit more visual with them, that they come and go within a year, and they might sell an online course, or they might sell a group or a pod, but they come and go because it's not sustainable. They're not looking at the outcomes. They're looking for the B2C play of, I just want to sell something up front. I'm not looking for relationships. And so for me, honing in and being specific allows you to create that longevity.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's the key here, right? Is the getting on the way, knowing. It's like, I think about it as surfing. I've never gone surfing, but I've watched movies, I've watched people do it, etc. And when it comes to surfing, it's very interesting, right? Because there's certain surfers that know, okay, these are low waves, I'm good. But there's certain surfers that are like, these are high waves, I'm not good. And it all depends on how much you practice and the skills that you have. So when I think about the wave of what you talked about, people creating sales content, social selling, influencer marketing right now, because I have personally, and you have seen this wave happen before, it is very easy to say, I'm going to grab my surfboard and just ride the huge wave. Yep. Now, you could make it, but you also could hurt yourself. Yep. so the way I look at that is like, how do I educate myself, get understanding of what other people are doing, so that we can do things the right way and do it in the way that makes sense. And it's really interesting when it comes to this industry. I was talking to a company that I advise, and the CEO brought up a great point. I was like, I didn't really think of that way. Most companies in category that are successful are typically not the first ones. They're the people who come after.
Interesting.
And I was like, huh, okay, so think about it. So Salesforce, before then it was Siebel, right?
Yeah.
Who talks about Siebel?
That's true.
Microsoft came in hot. Apple came in. Microsoft's around, but you don't know them for their computers.
Yeah.
Typically is Mac. There was a MacBook. We have the phones. Microsoft had that before, right? So I found that to be, it was an interesting thing to me, because I actually looked up a couple companies like, huh. Now, I'm not saying that if you come first as a B2B creator and all this stuff, like you're not, because like there are scenarios where like if you're first, you end up, having the stride. But I think there's importance in truly honing in on this craft and understanding what it is, so you're prepared to ride the wave.
Yeah, I agree. And take inspiration. That's what we do. We learn from what others are doing. We then put our own, tint on it, and we create something ourselves. I think one thing that I will always sort of stay true to, and I imagine you must face the same challenge, is staying humble and grounded. Because when you are creating content and you're getting all the likes and you're getting all the followers, it feels good. And
that's easy.
People, it's inflating.
That's easy. That's easy to stay humble. There's actually, it's easy if you go to the right places. It is hard if you stay in the bubble. So what do we mean by that? If you stay in the LinkedIn bubble, you're gonna think you're goated. I'm just like, you're gonna be like, I'm the greatest. And the thing is, like, I've subconsciously had this feeling. I'm not gonna lie. Like 2017, 2018, 2019. I mean, man, I was 24 years old, right? Getting like thousands of likes. Like, I don't know how else anyone's going to interpret that. Like, you're going to think like, I'm great. Like, I figured this out subconsciously. And so I think it was one of those things where I have now, especially since 2020 for sure, I always remain so humble about things, because I'm just following people who are ahead of me in terms of content.
Yeah.
And so I'm always studying that next layer, right? Like, you go look at like Mr. Beast, he uploads a video in an hour, he's got like 30 million views. And so you're like, so you can't be like, I'm just like, okay, there's different levels to it. So the thing is, all the people I follow, I'm always learning from them how they're like doing the hooks, how are they writing content. And I think that's what gets me excited. But also as well, I've been talking to my coach about this, is I think life and all this becomes more exciting when you treat it like a video game. Like, if you truly treat it like a video game, most video games are like uncapped. Like, you could keep leveling, you can keep going. Like, most games, you can max out, but it's going to just take you a while to do that. And even if you do max out, it's still fun to play. So I think for me, like that's how I look at it, is like I may be further along, you may be further along, but I've learned a lot from people who just started LinkedIn 3 years ago and they're doing phenomenal. And like, great, what did you learn that like I just didn't pick up? So I think that's how I always look at it now. I'm very humble in that regard to be like, there's always things that I can learn to get better.
Oh, I like it. I mean, there is just no ceiling. There is no top of the mountain. You got to keep climbing. I will say the other great strategy for keeping humbled is to have kids, because your kids, my kids, could not care less about how many LinkedIn followers I have, how many likes I get on my post. So another good strategy. Look, Morgan, this has been such a tremendous episode, and I so aligned to your thoughts around the B2B creator and influencer industry, and it will be very interesting to see over 2024, 2025, how it continues to evolve. But you are genuinely sort of leading this journey. And I would recommend everyone who listens and watches this, go and make sure you're following Morgan. And the content you put out has always been incredible, but especially as the sales industry continues to grow, you know, you're definitely at the forefront. So appreciate you coming on today, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you for everyone who's listened, and we will catch you all on the next episode very soon. Take care, everyone.